some were done by others, but the vast majority were done by me. And I mean, most kind of big shot elite researchers just hire people to do the work for them. They don't collect their own data. But first of all, I don't work like that, and I didn't feel that that would get very good information, frankly, and I didn't feel like that was the way the study should be done. So, but at the same time as I did this study, there was another study going on at the University of Michigan, funded also by the Russell Sage Foundation. It's called the Detroit Arab American Survey, and they used survey methodology, right? So they had this questionnaire, and they brought it to people, and they said answer, you know, A, B, C, or D, or 1 to 5. And they have a book that came out at the same time as mine. And these different methodologies produce different results, right? So the one example I wrote here is about race. In their study, they showed that the overwhelming majority of Arab Americans see themselves as white. In my study, you have the opposite conclusion. Now, you know, why is that? Well, in my view, you know, they were given, the people had a choice in their study of white, Asian, right? The same answers you get on a census form or an affirmative action form. They got the same choices. So, you know, in my view, Arab Americans are told they're supposed to answer white. So the fact that 80% of them answered white means nothing. That's my view. When I talk to people about race, they were able to talk for 10, 15, 20 minutes, however long they wanted to talk about race. And so you come up with a very different story when you actually let people talk about what a concept means to them. And if you do buy the book, you know, you don't have to read it from page 1 to the end because it might, I don't know, it might kind of overwhelm you. You can pick any chapter you want. If you're interested in women, read chapter 7. If you're interested in Arab American history, read chapter 3. If you're interested in government policies, read chapter 4. You know, you can just read it according to, if you're interested in the comparisons I did with South Society, South Suburbs, read chapter 6. Hate crimes is chapter 5, I believe. So, yeah, so, yeah, well, I went off and I lost where I was going. Okay, so, why did I name the book Homeland Insecurity? Well, you know, after doing all of these interviews, there was one theme that was present in every single interview, and that was what I call Homeland Insecurity. Homeland insecurity is a pervasive social and psychological state of fear and insecurity. It's a sense that you couldn't protect yourself or members of your family from the anger, harassment, or physical attacks of neighbors and coworkers, that you had to be careful of your surroundings, that your job might be at risk, that you might have to listen to pejorative statements or discriminatory comments or jokes about Arabs or Muslims at work, that you might be removed from an airplane, that you had to watch humiliating portrayals of your people on television, and that you were certainly not safe from the long arm of a federal government that had relaxed the meanings of the word security, innocence until proven guilty, due process for members of your group. These concepts did not apply. But I'd also like to read just a few quotes here that are in the book about Homeland, that relate to Homeland Insecurity. So one woman said, "It affects us psychologically. We are not comfortable. We feel that if anything bad happens overseas, in the United States and England, we are going to be treated badly. You get scared to be a Muslim. People look at you bad. They treat you bad. We are scared for our safety. I get scared that if something happens, they will come attack us here in our home. We all know what happened to the Japanese in World War II. They put them in camps." And then another person, "I suffered psychologically, no, but mentally, I suffered physically, no, but mentally and psychologically, yes. And I would say, not because I'm Palestinian born, because I'm an American citizen. And this is supposed to be the land of the free, democracy, rule of law, and suddenly it's a police state. Everybody's become a target for whatever reason the government decides. An edict by somebody in an office puts your life in jeopardy. It affected me in that the police state that prevailed after 9/11 reminded me of what happened to the Japanese in this country." So here people are seeing the parallels. And that, of course, is feeding the fear that the camps might, because when I wrote this book, there was still, people were still, and when I did interviews, people were still very afraid that camps might keep happening. Another person said, this is an Arab American, I mean somebody born here, the attitude and outlook was always there, it was just exaggerated, making you feel like you're the enemy, you're the bad one, and you're definitely a foreigner and do not belong in this country. When I was born and raised in this country, and I'm as American as anyone else, I feel like maybe I need to get the hell out of here because something bad is going to happen to our people here. It's a horrible feeling. So that is, that's a little snippet of what is Homeland Insecurity. And I talk in the book about these fears, you know, were not based on imagination. They were based on real incidents. They were based on real acts of harassment, real acts of, in some cases, assault, and real actions on the part of the government. In fact, almost everybody I interviewed said their lives were changed after September 11th. Their lives were no longer the same as they were before. 46% of the people I studied said they were verbally assaulted after 9/11, and 10% said they were victims of hate crimes, half of which were property damage. People talked about people shouting at them, "I want to kill you," or shouting "Osama," or "Go back where you came from." People reported eggs thrown at their homes, garbage dumped in their property, hate graffiti spray painted on their driveways, stories of discrimination in the workplace, at airports, at schools, and in banks. So there's a whole kind of chapter of the book that talks about these experiences. But what I like to talk about, especially when I go to these universities, is how most of the experiences that the people I talk about are not officially hate crimes. It's not a crime to spit at somebody. You know, it's not a crime to pull their headscarf. It's not a crime to, you know, give them a finger. It's not a crime to say go to hell or give back where you came from. I mean, you could probably hire a legal team and make one of these a crime, but in general, it's not considered a crime. Then people don't call those in as hate crimes. So, you know, I do have some hate crime statistics in the book, but I really feel that that's not the story. The story is not going to be found in hate crime statistics. The statistics are there, but like just focusing on those statistics does not tell what it's like to live in an environment where everybody around you acts like they hate you. That cannot be summarized in the word hate crime. It also cannot be summarized in the word discrimination. And the official level, you know, wants to talk in these terms, like the scholarly level and the whatever, you know, certain strata of our society force you to talk in these terms that really don't describe human reality very well, in my view. So what I'd like to talk about for the rest of this is, I think most of you in this room know it was a bad time, know what was going on. So what does this book have to offer that people don't talk about or hasn't been offered by others? Well, I try to talk about, you know, did all Arabs and Muslims have the same experience? Did it matter where somebody lived? Did it matter if they were a man or a woman? Did men have different experiences than women after slavery? I talk about they had quite different experiences. Did immigrants have a different experience from American-born? Did the American government act with moral responsibility in a manner that would prevent hate crimes and discourage prejudice, or did it foment prejudice and kind of not discourage hate crimes? How many homegrown or U.S.-based terrorists were actually caught during this intensive period of scrutiny? Intensive scrutiny. How many were caught? And what impact did the degree of production of domestic terrorists have on the Arab American and Muslim American experience? And what were the ultimate outcomes of this period for Arab and Muslim Americans? Does the future look good or bad? How did it affect people's religious faith? Well, this is what I don't think I can get through all this tonight. But I will skip over some. And anyhow, these are all kind of what the book is about. I'm trying to tell a kind of more nuanced, complex rendering of this period. I start the book by saying that what happened to Arab and Muslim Americans after September 11th was not about September 11th. It was about a caricature that had been set up in this country about who's an Arab and who's a Muslim, right? It's based on 20 years, if not more, of movement.